Yesterday, we witnessed this.
Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried.
No, this image doesn't show white farmers being buried in South Africa. In fact, the image shows Red Cross workers in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Just another lie by President Trump.
Why did they choose to ambush the South African president? Why was Elon Musk there? Do you have any idea?
Well, Katie, I mean, it was an ambush, but it was also a very predictable one, given that the president has been so outspoken about this issue.
The president of South Africa tried to tell Trump that they wasn't taking the lives of the farmers over there, that wasn't true. So what did Trump do? He just rolled out a TV and said, look at this right here. People talking about it, taking the lives of the farmers over there and showing all the crosses. And the president of South Africa couldn't say anything, but just sit there, kind of with a smirk on his face. But that's what I call a president. Trump don't play around. He'll call you out right then and there, right in front of you.
Trump just had the weirdest meeting in the Oval Office today. Like, it might top the attack on Zelensky. Because he was hosting the president of South Africa, and at first, it was fine. They were joking. Trump was like, he called me, and I said, how'd you get this number? And then a reporter asked why Trump decided to admit white South Africans as refugees, but not people who are actually in need, and then it just spiraled out of control. Or with Trump falsely claiming there was a genocide against white people in South Africa, which then creates this back and forth where the president of South Africa is trying to explain to Trump why he's wrong, and Trump's just being Trump. But then at one point, the president pointing out that the golfers that he brought with him and a portion of his cabinet that are there with him are white, and he said if there was a genocide, they wouldn't be here. He then tells Trump to listen to the voices of South Africans, but Trump then has the lights turned out and they play clips on a TV of what Trump claims proves that there's a genocide. With then Trump pulling out a big stack of printed out articles, and so the South African president kicks it over to the white Secretary of Agriculture to explain that a genocide is not happening. Or with Trump then threatening to involve Elon because Elon's from there. And notably, in the past, Elon has said that Starlink wasn't allowed to operate in South Africa because he wasn't black. And well, in this meeting, the South African government was talking about how they need it and haven't been able to get it. And then a reporter asked Trump about the plane Qatar, definitely didn't bribe him with, and Trump goes ballistic over it, and so then...
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay.
Starting with this whiteness. You are cutting the throat of whiteness in Ghana. Shoot, kill, government saw, kill the blue, the farmer, kill the blue.
I really wonder how the people who were denying the fact that there is a white genocide in South Africa feel right now. Because Donald Trump has to prove y'all wrong once again. I just find it so funny that, they actually questioned these white refugees specifically because they're white. And I know this is true because the fact that they had no questions for the vetting process for over 11 million illegal immigrants from 200 other different countries, they did not give a f***. But now, because they're white refugees, it's a problem. Well, now we've proven that they're actually going through a genocide, so the left is awfully quiet now.
Donald Trump's attempt to humiliate the South African president today was not in the United States' interest whatsoever, nor was it intended to be. It was intended to serve an audience of one person, that apartheid Nepo baby, Elon Musk, who has the white supremacist goal of reasserting apartheid in South Africa. And of course, this effort is going to fail. South Africa has gone through much worse than Donald Trump and Elon Musk. No policies will change, and the only result will be that the United States is humiliated, like we always are under this president.
Can we stop letting Donald Trump meet with world leaders? Please, how do we make this happen? President Trump confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and accused his government of mass killings and land seizures targeting white people. And the reality is South Africa does have one of the world's highest crime rates, and the vast majority of victims are black South Africans, not white South Africans. Despite online chatter, there's no evidence of a white genocide or state-sanctioned land grabs. This moment actually reminds us of the time he met with Zelensky and ambushed him in front of the entire world as well. And then, said out loud, well, I guess America is willing to take a bribe if you're going to send us a jet like our friends in the Middle East did.
Sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay.
He's saying this on a national stage, people. This is embarrassing. It's corruption. It's everything that's wrong in the world. As he's telling a world leader what's happening in his country, and none of it's true, as he decides to take in the white refugees. Those are the good ones, according to Trump land. And everyone else, get out. But yes, more embarrassing moments with Trump and world leaders on a national stage. It's embarrassing, spreading lies, quietly saying he would take bribes on a national stage. Just a bad look for America. Can we please stop Donald from meeting with world leaders? Please.
How much danger are white South Africans really in? So, yesterday, South Africa's President Ramaphosa came to visit ours, who ambushed him with this footage, right? Showing threats of violence against white South Africans. Come with me now on a journey, if you will, right? To learn why that was extremely racist, right? Against Black people. For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Sutton. I'm a professor. I study slavery. I wrote a book about it, and I love pointing out what makes things racist. I was also in Cape Town last year checking out some of this stuff for work. So, Ramaphosa was shown cherry-picked data of whites in South Africa who have been the victims of crime. Was it real? Sure, right? Did the crimes happen? Yes, they did. Have they been increasing? Also yes. So what's the issue? There was no context, right? Like, if our administration had any ethics when it came to data analysis, like I have to, right? If I want to keep my job, it would have presented the rest of the evidence, right? Which shows that all violent crime in South Africa has been on the up. Black, not white, not brown people, are disproportionately the victims of violent crime in South Africa. And it's usually the poorest Black people. Human Rights Watch tracks these numbers, right? And they found that after Black South Africans, the next most affected groups are queer South Africans of every race and color and ethnicity, followed by women, and then the elderly, right? White South Africans are far down that list. In fact, they are the safest and most protected group of people in South Africa, despite the increase of violence against farmers. Let me be very, very clear here, okay? To center violence against white people when they are the least affected group of people is racist, right? It is saying that white people are more deserving of safety than their neighbors of other colors or races. Not a single political party, including those who represent white Afrikaners' interests, have claimed that there is a white genocide in South Africa, right? In February, a South African judge dismissed the idea of white genocide as clearly imagined and not real, right? The judge's words, not mine. Factcheck.org could not find any evidence. But you know what they did find? When you trace back the IP addresses, far-right white supremacist groups in the United States have been behind almost every single article, meme, website, and social media influencer that pushes this false narrative. And boy, have I felt that, right? Never have I had to delete comments as quickly as I have on my South Africa posts, right? And then when I look at who made them, it's often this anonymous account with no image, no content, no followers of their own that was recently created, right? This whole thing is sus as hell.
Donald Trump just got called out to his face by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in the Oval Office. Now, the two leaders are meeting today to discuss the claims that Donald Trump has made about South Africa, specifically what's happening to certain farmers there. At one point, Donald Trump was asked, what would it take to convince you that these stories aren't true? And before Trump could respond, Ramaphosa jumped in and said this.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans.
Yeah, it will take Donald Trump listening. And that was the theme of this entire meeting. Donald Trump has been constantly trying to insist that these things are happening in South Africa. He has accused the president of being behind this. Sometimes he doesn't. And each time the South African president pushes back and he says, look, we need to have a dialogue. We need to have a talk. At one point, he invoked Nelson Mandela. He has been very calm about it, but taking subtle jabs like this, and I say that's well done.
President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, take a bow. You are Black excellence. Have you seen the showdown that happened between President Ramaphosa and President Trump at the White House about this whole white genocide situation happening in South Africa? President Ramaphosa is so strategic and so smart. He knew that as a Black South African, he would not get the ear of the type of president Trump is. So he brought with him in his delegation 3 white South Africans, including his Minister of Agriculture, who were also saying to Trump, this whole story of genocide of white farmers in South Africa is false. Didn't work. Did not work. The Afrikaner white refugees that came to America recently are all famous people. Golfers, there's a billionaire in there. So the theory is that Elon Musk has planted the seed in Trump's ear, along with his other right-wing allies, that there is this genocide of white people going on in South Africa. They also provided him with the absolute proof in this video from this minority political party in South Africa. This political party was spewing a lot of hate rhetoric towards white farmers and were advocating for unaliving them. The gag is, though, that this was a very tiny minority grouping that has absolutely no political power and cannot influence South African policies. So Trump showing that video shows that he really does not understand who is calling the shots in South Africa, because that video totally just discredited his claim of genocide, and he did not even realize that. I give so much credit to President Ramaphosa. He was poised. He was diplomatic. He was articulate. He made sense. Perfect representation of strong African leadership. South Africa, you should feel so proud of your president. He came to America and he shone like a diamond in comparison to his American counterpart. Let me know what you think of President Ramaphosa's visit. Did he do a fantastic job representing not only South Africa, but Africans and African leaders on the world stage?
President of the United States is an embarrassment and a liar, and the latest example of embarrassment and lying came in front of not just the president of South Africa, but in front of the entire world. Seemingly some research was done here that's really at the level of like a 6th grader who's cramming to write a paper that they forgot about for the past month. It was showing the president of South Africa a series of news clippings that were allegedly supposed to support his false claim that there is a genocide of white farmers. Except this clipping right here was a general article from a tiny news source that has absolutely nothing to do with South Africa. This is talking about general tribalism in Africa, and this right here is from an attack that took place in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. You might remember when that happened. It was absolutely awful. It was back in February when over 100 female prisoners were raped and then burned alive. Donald Trump is doing here is using a clipping talking about black women being killed in a different country to back up his claim of a white genocide in South Africa. That is how unhinged the United States is right now. Donald also showed old footage of an anti-apartheid song being sung at a rally for a small party that won 9.5% of the vote in last year's election. Now, Donald also showed this, which is gone. He said this is still here. It's not there. He said every single one of these crosses was for a white farmer that was killed. This entire thing was a memorial for one couple that was killed in 2020. God rest their souls, but this was not representative of thousands of white farmers. This was about one couple. To get at Trump's claims of white genocide, we could just look at the actual data. There were 26,232 murders last year in South Africa, one of the most dangerous countries in the world. 44 of those killings were in the farming community, and 8 of those people were farmers. Let's say for argument's sake, every one of those farmers was white. That would mean 0.03% of the murders in South Africa last year were white farmers. Is that a genocide? Man is a lying and an embarrassment to the country, and he is setting us back on the world stage every day.
Hours ago, Trump had the South African president in the Oval Office trying to smooth over trade relations, and then he lowered the lights and played a video. In this video, he was accusing the South African president of trying to kill white people in South Africa. But the person in the video wasn't even the South African president. That's number one. And number two, they were showing crosses on a field with people saying, "Kill the white man," as part of a protest. It was tongue-in-cheek. It was satirical, where they were showing how aggressive this is. And the white crosses were not supposed to be for white people that are dead in the field. It was an effigy. It was showing how horrific that is. And Trump did not understand that. He brought the South African president into the Oval Office and lowered the lights and accused him of genocide.
These are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. 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 Horrible death. Death. I don't know.
But you know that they're black people who are dying the
South
most?
Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do.
I mean,
burial sites right here.
They're not burial sites.
Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers. And those cars are lined up to pay love.
The farmers are saying, we're fine. What? Yes, they are taking land back from the apartheid era where the white farmers took the land that wasn't theirs to begin with. But you guys, this is so embarrassing. How does he not know this? Oh my God. Oh my God.
President of South Africa came in the White House today, brought himself a couple of South African golfers, and thought that President Trump was not going to bring receipts. Instead, he thought that President Trump was going to be all smiles, and he was going to get his photo ops, and he's going to get to go back to South Africa and continue to propagandize like that nothing is going on. No, not at all. President Trump rolled a friggin' TV into the White House briefing room there and said, actually, here is a video of your government calling for the genocide of white farmers in South Africa. And he proceeded to play about a 5-minute video of a leader of the South African Party calling for just take the land, we don't care, we don't have to have the president's permission. And President Trump is not playing that. So also, the president of South Africa said that he had met with President Zelensky right when President Trump was elected. And President Trump was like, called you in South Africa and was like, why is Zelensky in South Africa? And the South African president did not have a good answer. But in reality, let's all not forget that President Biden went to South Africa. That was one of his last things he did. And then Zelensky went to South Africa. So, South Africans are on notice. We didn't let those South African farmers in here and make such a big deal out of it for no reason. President Trump wanted everybody to look into that. But it is genuinely happening. Hope y'all are having a blessed day.
I used to think Donald Trump was just pure evil. But after listening to him talk about South Africa and the conspiracy theories that he believes about what's going on there, even when people who are from there are telling him that it's not true, and he brings out unreliable source after unreliable source, he is a Facebook dad. Our president is not smart enough to discern conspiracy theories and fact. He is no better than my grandpa or my dad sharing videos on Facebook. I truly think our president is just an idiot now. I mean, maybe he's rooted in evil too, but the guy is a Facebook dad sharing videos about Bigfoot.
So in today's episode of Donald Trump Embarrasses Himself and the Entire Country in the process, he had a meeting today with the South African president and launched into a tirade about how there is, quote unquote, white genocide happening in South Africa. And to be clear, there is not white genocide going on in South Africa. No human rights groups say that there is. The government doesn't say that there is. No news outlets say that it is. This is the work of Elon Musk and trying to protect these rich colonial farmers and move them to the United States on our dime. All while he is telling other people who are trying to come to this country and claim refugee status to not come here. So if you're keeping score at home, brown people who claim refugee status are not welcome in the United States, and white South African farmers who are not facing any sort of need for a refugee status are being granted entry. Like, if these guys don't want to be called racist, they really need to stop doing racist shit like this. It is so obvious to anyone paying attention that they are clearly letting these people come in because they're white, and they're keeping the other people out because they are black and brown.